Macbeth that shall be king hereafter.
Full of scorpions is my mind.
What's done is done.
Life's but a walking shadow. Honor, love, a friend, but in their stead, curses.
Hello and welcome to this recording of the Shakespeare text Macbeth. As you can see on the screen, the normal user's guide is there. Please pause if you haven't seen the video before to see how best to use this resource. Today we're going to focus on Macbeth. This is our second part of 3 focusing on the character. Today we're going to focus on the middle of the play. Macbeth, as we know, comes from Glamis Castle to the east of Scotland. We're going to focus on AO1, understanding what the play is about, and AO2, its language, form and structure. Macbeth, as we know, at the beginning of the play starts off past nobility, one of the Thanes of Scotland, but during this part of the play, that is the middle section of the play, we see him become king, a place that used to be inhabited by Duncan. You can't really talk about Macbeth without talking about the chain of being. An example of that is in front of you there. And Macbeth fits in round about the middle. As you can see, Macbeth's role comes just under Malcolm and Donalbain's until, of course, he becomes king. The key themes then, the character Macbeth obviously covers all of these, and I'm going to go into a bit more detail through the course of this clip. So we join him as he enters the play in Act 2, Scene 1/2. What do we learn from this scene? Macbeth and Banquo discuss the witches. Macbeth claims they are not in his thoughts. Macbeth hallucinates, seeing a blood-stained dagger. His mind is filled with evil. And Macbeth kills Duncan, but says he can't sleep or pray. Shakespeare juxtaposes Macbeth's superficial self with his inner monologue, as he outwardly appears friendly and loyal, yet speaks his thoughts to the audience in soliloquy. Traditionally, a soliloquy is where characters speak the absolute truth. Shakespeare repeatedly uses dramatic irony and artifice in Macbeth's language. Let's begin to analyse set extracts then from Macbeth from the middle of the play. We join him there just after he begins thinking about killing the king, and he's confessing it and how he feels to his wife. Shakespeare presents Macbeth as a man ashamed of his own actions and deeds and finds he can't sleep. His tone is panicked and disjointed, and his mind fragments at the enormity of what he's done. At this point then he's just killed Duncan. Shakespeare juxtaposes Macbeth's good life with the darkness of sleep as a metaphor for what he's done to Scotland and Duncan. Shakespeare contrasts Macbeth's complex thoughts with Lady Macbeth's commanding tone and short sentences. Shakespeare repeatedly uses sleep imagery here, and earlier Macbeth says he can no longer say amen, implying he can no longer be seen by God. This repeatedly presents us with a man who's not allowed to rest. This foreshadows the madness shown later in the play, and Macbeth talks to himself in third person, emphasising he feels detached from himself, as if he's literally become a different person. The language here clearly implies Macbeth is seeing his old good self, represented by Glamis, murdering Duncan, and so metamorphosising into the new Macbeth, that of Cawdor. Lady Macbeth's language is filled with imperatives and lack of pity. She is angry at Macbeth. She once again makes it clear that Macbeth is behaving like a child. A key quote then at this point of the play is, "What hands are here? Ha! They pluck out mine eyes. When all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hand." The idea of cleanliness and washing away guilt is repeated by Lady Macbeth in Act 6, Scene 1. Macbeth sees the loyal blood of Duncan on his hands and speaks as if he doesn't recognise the hands as his own. Being a warrior, Macbeth would pride himself on his physical skill, so this hyperbolizes the detachment and madness Macbeth feels. In Shakespearean times, the ocean would have been the largest thing imaginable, and so Shakespeare allows us to picture a vast body of water, and even that is not enough to cleanse Macbeth of the guilt he feels. Macbeth no longer wants to see what he's done, so Shakespeare paints the image of Macbeth destroying his eyes. The eyes are windows to the soul, and so Macbeth is destroying his own soul here. Some key quotes from this scene then, all linked to Macbeth. And really, we can't focus on Macbeth really without focusing on Macbeth, Lady Macbeth's reaction. She says, "My hands are of your colour, but as shame I wear, but I shame to wear a heart so white, and little water clears this deed." Lady Macbeth is juxtaposed with Macbeth throughout the scene. Macbeth cannot wipe the blood from his hands, yet Lady Macbeth only needs a quick rinse of water to get rid of the blood. This contrasts with the end of the play, when Macbeth willingly walks into an ocean of blood, and Lady Macbeth can never rid herself of the blood from her hands, no matter how much she washes them. Act 3, Scene 1. Macbeth tells Banquo he wants him to attend his banquet. Macbeth tells everyone that Duncan's sons are spreading rumours. Macbeth is concerned that Banquo's sons will become king, and Macbeth meets two murderers and requests they kill their enemy, Banquo. Shakespeare allows Macbeth to evolve into a deceiver and persuader that his wife once was. Macbeth uses the same structures and persuasive techniques as his wife, but he is now acting independently. He no longer needs her help. We know at this point in the play then, a friendship, what once was a close friendship, is now in the balance. At the start of the scene, Banquo worries about his friend and what he's done to fulfill the witch's prophecies. Shakespeare repeatedly has Macbeth use dramatic irony and duplicitous language to make clear how the bond between the two men is disintegrating. You can see in black there Macbeth's words to Banquo just before he sets off on his horse ride. He calls him chief guest. He requests his presence. We desired what Macbeth refers to as good advice. He says, "Fail not in our feast." Notice the mixture there of commanding language, but also emphasizing the strong bond he feels with Banquo. Banquo, on the other hand, now outlined in white, "I fear thou play'st most foully for it. Let your harness command upon me, a dissoluble tie forever knit," and "my good lord," emphasize how Banquo has become subservient to Macbeth. He emphasizes the indissoluble tie the two have between them, and he calls him good lord, emphasizing his positive qualities and the man he used to be. We then have Macbeth talking to us, the audience, before the murderers enter. Shakespeare presents Macbeth as a changed man, not filled with doubt, but filled with anger and resentment. This soliloquy is different and independent of Lady Macbeth. Shakespeare uses chiasmus here, as Macbeth's goals have shifted. He no longer wants to be king, and realizes that instead he wants security and keep the crown. This exaggerates his greed and insecurity. Shakespeare uses a metaphor here of Banquo as a dagger that is killing Macbeth. Macbeth goes on to outline Macbeth's positive qualities as the qualities that could do him harm. Shakespeare confronts us here with Macbeth's biggest motivation, being childless and wanting to continue his lineage. The semantic field of being childless is used: fruitless crown, barren sceptre, and unlineal hand. All emphasise Macbeth's fear he has no children to be king after him. Macbeth fears he's killed gracious Duncan for Banquo rather than his own gain. He is clearer than ever that he committed murder. He knows that he's given his soul to the devil, mine eternal jewel given to the eternal enemy of man, for Banquo's benefit. Macbeth accepts he'll have to continue to fight and kill and fight against the witch's prophecies that were not in his favour. Let's join then Macbeth as he ponders what he's going to do next.
To be thus is nothing. but to be safely thus. Our fears in Banquo stick deep, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which will be feared. 'Tis much he dares, and to that dauntless temper of his mind he hath a wisdom that doth guide his valour to act in safety. There is none but he whose being I do fear. And under him my genius is rebuked, as it is said Mark Antony's was by Caesar. He chid the sisters when first they put the name of king upon me, and bade them speak to him. Then, prophet-like, they hailed him father to a line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown, and put a barren scepter in my grip, thence to be wrenched by an unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding. If it be so, for Banquo's issue have I filed my mind. For them, the gracious Duncan, have I murdered. Put rankers in the vessel of my peace only for them, and mine eternal jewel given to the common enemy of man to make them kings. The seed of Banquo kings? Rather than so come fate into the list and champion me to the utterance. Who's there? Now go to the door and stay there till we call. Was it not yesterday we spoke together?
It was, so please, Your Highness.
Well, then, now, have you considered of my speeches? Know that it was he in the times past who held you so under fortune, who you thought had been our innocent self. This I made good to you at our last conference. Passed in probation with you how you were born in hand, how crossed the instruments, who wrought with them, and all things else which might to half a soul and to a notion crazed say, thus did Banquo.
You made it known to us.
I did say, and went further, which is now our point of second meeting. Do you find your patience so predominant in your nature that you can let this go? Are you so gospelled to pray for this good man and for his issue, whose heavy hand hath bowed you to the grave and beggared yours forever?
We are men, my liege.
Aye, in the catalogue ye go for men, as hounds and greyhounds, mongrels, spaniels, curs, choughs, water rugs, and demi-wolves are kept all by the name of dogs. The valued file distinguishes the swift, the slow, the subtle, the housekeeper, the hunter, every one according to that gift which bounteous nature hath in him closed, whereby he does receive particular additions from the bill that writes them all alike. And so of men.
Huh?
No. If you have a station in the file, not in the worst rank of manhood, say it, and I will put that business in your bosoms, whose execution takes your enemy off.
I am one, my liege, whom the vile blows and buffets of the world have so incensed that I'm reckless what I do to spite the world.
No, another.
Both of you know Banquo was your enemy.
Well, true, my lord.
So is he mine. And in such bloody distance that every minute of his being thrusts against my nearest of life. And though I could with barefaced power sweep him from my sight and bid my will avouch it, yet I must not, for certain friends who are both his and mine, whose loves I may not drop, but wail his fall, who I myself struck down. And thence it is that I to your assistance do make love, masking the business from the common eye for sundry weighty reasons.
We will, my lord, perform what you command us.
Though our lives
Your
stand at the
spirits shine through you. Within this hour, at most, I will acquaint you where to plant yourselves, advise you of the perfect spy of the time, the moment on it, for it must be done tonight, and something from the palace. Always thought that I require a clearness. And with him to leave no rubs nor botches in the work of Fleance. his son, who keeps him company, whose absence is no less material to me than is his father's, must embrace the fate of that dark hour. Resolve yourselves apart. I'll come to you anon.
We are resolved, my lord.
I'll call upon you straight. It is concluded. Abide within. Banquo, thy soul's flight, if it find heaven, must find it out tonight.
As you can see, Macbeth uses many of the same techniques as Lady Macbeth, insulting the murderer's manhood, trying to convince them that Banquo is in fact their enemy as well as his. Lots of interesting persuasive techniques there going on, many of which are borrowed from Lady Macbeth. A key quote then is right at the end of that particular recording. It is concluded, Banquo, thy soul's flight, if it find heaven, must find it out tonight. The prophecies have forced the two men apart, and this is Macbeth wishes his friend a last goodbye. This last line could be seen as a threat, as if Banquo must escape or could be plunged into hell with Macbeth. Shakespeare ends this scene with a statement of certainty from Macbeth. He metamorphosized into a butcher. His metamorphosis, into a butcher is complete. Macbeth knows that Banquo is pure and good, wishing him safe passage to heaven and to God. Macbeth talks directly to an absent Banquo. His tone is calm and he uses a rhyming couplet to suggest the love he still feels towards his old friend. Some key quotes then from this scene. We next see him in Act 3, Scene 2. Lady Macbeth is troubled. Macbeth is still secretly racked with insecurity, and he envies the peace that Duncan has. Macbeth hints at the terrible things that are happening tonight. Shakespeare develops the idea that Lady Macbeth and Macbeth have swapped roles. Macbeth becomes committed to the dark hell he resides in, whilst Lady Macbeth is now uncertain and doesn't believe they've gained anything. It is Macbeth who is filled from top to toe in direst cruelty. This is then an extract of the conversations between the two. Shakespeare presents Lady Macbeth here as a woman who feels nothing has been gained by treason. Her thoughts parallel the regret felt by Macbeth. She uses alliteration, dwell in doubtful joy, to exaggerate her sad mood. The rhyming also hints back to the witches. "'Tis safer to be that which we destroy," implies she would rather be dead than think about what they've done. Shakespeare has Lady Macbeth fear for her husband and the isolation from her and those he cares about. Macbeth is becoming more and more independent, and she fears that he's almost uncontrollable. She begs Macbeth to forget about Duncan's death. She does not know about the murder of Banquo. What's done is done echoes Macbeth's words from Act 1, Scene 7. If it were done, then it's done. Shakespeare confronts us with a vengeful Macbeth who uses the metaphor of a snake to represent the threat that Banquo poses. They may have killed Duncan, but another threat remains in the form of Banquo. Macbeth references once more the fact he can't sleep and has nightmares about his guilt. He speaks of being tortured and restless, and, like Lady Macbeth, he believes it would be better to be dead than be as they are now. This is the pivot in Lady Macbeth and Macbeth's relationship. Have a look at this scene and think about their thoughts and feelings and how they are shown.
Is Banquo gone from port?
Aye, madam, but returns again tonight.
Say to the king, I would attend his leisure for a few words.
Madam, I will.
Notes had, all spent, when our desire is God without content. 'Tis safer to be that which we destroy than by destruction dwell in doubtful joy. How now, my lord? Why do you keep alone? Of sorriest fancies your companions making, using those thoughts which should indeed have died with him they think on. Things without all remedy should be without regard. What's done is done.
We have scotched the snake, not killed it. She'll close and be herself, whiles our poor Malice remains in danger of her former tooth. But let the frame of things disjoint, and both the worlds suffer, ere we will eat our meal in fear, and sleep in the affliction of these terrible dreams that shake us nightly. Better be with the dead, whom we to gain our peace have sent to peace, than on the torture of the mind to lie in restless ecstasy. Duncan is in his grave, after life's fitful fever. He sleeps well. Treason's done his worst, nor steel, nor poison, malice domestic, foreign lever. Nothing can touch him further.
Come on! Gentle, my lord. Sleek o'er your rugged looks. Be bright and jovial among your guests tonight.
So shall I, love. And so I pray be you, let your remembrance apply to Banquo. Present him eminence both with eye and tongue, and safe the while that we must lave our honours in these flattering streams, and make our faces vizards to our hearts, disguising what they are.
You must leave this!
Oh, full of scorpions is my mind. Dear wife. The nurse that Banquo and his fleeing live.
But in their nature's copy's not eternal.
Well, there's comfort yet. They are assailable. Then without jocund, ere the bat hath flown his cloistered flight, ere to black Hecate summons the shard-born beetle with his drowsy hums hath rung night's yawning peal, there shall be done a deed of dreadful note.
What's to be done?
Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. Come, sealing night, scarf up the tender eye of pitiful day, and with thy bloody and invisible hand cancel and tear to pieces that great band which keeps me pale. Light thickens, and the crow makes wing to the rooky wood. Good things of day begin to droop and drowse, whiles night's black agents to their praise do rouse. Thou marvelst at my words, but hold thee still. Things bad begun make strong themselves by ill. So, prithee go with me.
So it is now Macbeth saying to Lady Macbeth, cover up her actual feelings, look good in front of the guests. Shakespeare uses a zoomorphic metaphor to describe the pain Macbeth feels, as if his mind is being poisoned by those thoughts and ambitions. Full of scorpions is my mind. Macbeth's language here is filled with Gothic imagery, bat, black, beetle, all linked to Lady Macbeth's own spell at the start of the play. These are all examples of the evil blackness that inhabits Macbeth. Shakespeare confronts us here with Macbeth once again using a euphemism for murder, but this time about Banquo. In this case, he's hiding it from Lady Macbeth. A deed of dreadful note. Lady Macbeth now turns to Macbeth for answers, the exact opposite of the start of the play. Macbeth hides the murder of Banquo and asks his wife to be innocent, Macbeth follows Lady Macbeth's example of forcing the knight to take hold of him, come sealing knight. Here we see a grid which represents the power levels of all the different characters. You can see the witches in white, they are the most powerful characters that we see on stage. You've then got Lady Macbeth in yellow, and you can see there Macbeth, I believe, in blue, and Banquo in red. These arrows all represent power. As you can see, we're at the point now here where Lady Macbeth and Macbeth's power levels cross over. At one point, Lady Macbeth was the most powerful, but Macbeth, as he become more evil, slowly gains more and more power, and this is the point where the two reverse roles. Some key quotes then from this particular part of the play. We then go to Act 3, Scene 4. Banquo is dead. Macbeth is told Flint escapes. Macbeth feels that Flint is too young to do harm yet. Banquo's ghost appears and unnerves Macbeth. Lady Macbeth calms him. And after the third appearance of the ghost, Macbeth broods on murder and the unnatural state of Scotland. Macbeth decides he will see the witches again and vows he will kill anyone in his way. This scene is analysed in detail in the clip dedicated to Banquo and Banquo's ghost. See my Macbeth playlist on my channel for that particular revision note. As the play develops then, Shakespeare gleefully invites Banquo to Macbeth's first and last supper, thereby keeping Banquo's commis to attend Macbeth's feast.
Roofed were the graced person of our Banquo present, who may be rather challenged for unkindness than pity for mischance.
His absence, sir, lays blame upon his promise. Will please your highness grace us with your royal company?
The table's full.
Here's a place reserved, sir.
Where?
Here, my good lord. What is that moves your highness?
Which of you have done this?
What, my good lord?
Thou canst not say I did it. Never shake thy gory locks at me.
Gentlemen, rise. His highness is not well.
Sit, worthy friends. My lord is often thus, and hath been from his youth. Pray you keep seat. The fit is momentary. Upon a thought he will again be well. If much you note him, you will offend him and extend his passion. Are you a man?
Aye, and a bold one that dare look on that, which might appall the devil.
Proper stuff. This is the very painting of your fear. This is the air-drawn dagger which you said led you to Duncan. Oh, these flaws and starts. Impostors to true fear would well become a woman's story at a winter's fire authorized by her grandam. Shame itself! Why do you make such faces? When all's done, you look but on a stool.
Behold! Look! How say you? What care I if thou canst not speak to? If charnel houses in our graves must send those that we bury back, our monuments shall be the moors of kites.
What quite unmanned in folly.
If I stand here, I saw him.
Fie for shame!
The time has been that when the brains were out, the man would die. And there an end, but now they rise again with 20 mortal murders on their crowns and push us from our stools. This is more strange than such a murder is.
My worthy lord, your noble friends do lack you.
I do forget. Do not muse at me. My most worthy friends, I have a strange infirmity which is nothing to those that know me. Come, love and health to all. Then I'll sit. Give me some wine. Fill full. I drink to the general joy of the whole table and to our dear friend Banquo, whom we miss, would he were here. To all and him, we thirst. Hey, my sight! Let the earth hide thee! Thy bones are marrowless. Thy blood is cold. Thou hast no speculation in those eyes which thou dost glare with.
Think of this, good Piers, but as a thing of custom, 'tis no other. Only it spoils pleasure of the time.
What man I dare approach thou like the rugged Russian bear, the armed rhinoceros, the heckin tiger, take any shape but this, and my firm nerves will never tremble or be alive again, and dare me to the desert with thy sword, if trembling I inhabit, then protest with the baby of a girl. Hence, horrible shadow, and real mockery, hence. Being gone, I am a man again. Pray, you sit still.
You have displaced the mirth, broke the good meeting with most admired disorder.
Can such things be and overcome?
Let's have a closer look then once more at Macbeth's language, as first off he sends the murderers away to kill Banquo. He talks to the murderers when they return after killing Banquo, and then confronts the ghost at the dinner table. Shakespeare presents Macbeth's reaction to the death as almost casual. Macbeth jokes that Banquo's blood is better on a murderer's face and takes pleasure in the news. Shakespeare confronts the audience with Macbeth putting on a front of happiness. Macbeth would have been perfect if it wasn't for Fleance's escape. Macbeth presents himself as stable as marble, but then uses alliteration to suggest he's now a prisoner, cabined, confined by his destiny now that Fleance has escaped. Once again, Shakespeare uses the motif of a snake or serpent, as Fleance is described as being a worm that will grow and seek revenge. The word worm implies how innocent and young Fleance is. We then look once more at the language Macbeth uses each time the ghost appears. First off, he replies with, "Thou canst not say I did it, never shake thy gory locks at me." Macbeth refuses to take the blame for Banquo's murder, yet speaks to a ghost that can't be seen and or heard. The audience may only remember the phrase, "I did it," but might interpret the outburst as being about Duncan. Macbeth once again gives commands to the supernatural force that's beyond his power. Macbeth is concerned that Banquo is disagreeing with him. Shakespeare confronts us with a Banquo who's no longer willing to obey Macbeth. Alternatively, Macbeth is physically being sprayed with blood from the shaking of the gory locks, once again metaphorically marking him as a murderer and linking him to the blood on the murderer's face earlier in the scene. He then responds to the next ghostly appearance with, "The time has been that when the brains were out a man would die, and there an end, but now they rise again, 20 mortal murders on their crowns, and push us from our stools." Shakespeare uses graphic imagery of battle here, reminding us that Macbeth sees the world in simplistic terms of life and death, a soldier's viewpoint. The enjambment here suggests to us that Macbeth is realizing the hell that waits for him after death. It implies that he was once a man who didn't believe in the afterlife, and so was not scared of death, yet Banquo, a man very much like Macbeth, has proven him wrong. Shakespeare juxtaposes the idea of the crown and royalty with a stool, and Macbeth's humble beginnings. This confronts us with the idea the throne will not be enough for Macbeth, but it is a stool to sit on. The juxtaposition reminds us Macbeth should not be in power, as he is but a thane. His use of our implies he still thinks himself as one of the lords, as deep down as if he is aware he shouldn't really be king. Thy bones are marrowless, thy blood is cold, thou hast no speculation in those eyes, which thou dost glare with. Shakespeare repeats blood imagery here to force us to see Macbeth's fear that the dead come back to life to haunt him. The alliteration, blood bones, imply Macbeth is dissecting what he's seeing, implying logic to an illogical situation. This attempt to understand what he sees illuminates the conflict Macbeth has always had between the natural and the supernatural. Shakespeare confronts us with the image of Macbeth being judged by a gaze more powerful and godly than his own. Banquo is like an avenging angel reminding and staring at Macbeth's soul. Macbeth shouts these lines, suggesting a lack of control and anger towards Banquo, or perhaps his own conscience. I dare approach thou like a rugged Russian bear, the armed rhinoceros or the Hyrcan tiger. Take any shape but that, and my firm nerves shall never tremble. Shakespeare uses similes and a list of dangerous, almost mythical animals to describe Macbeth. This foreshadows the confrontation with Macduff at the end of the play and the language Macbeth uses. These present Macbeth as a strong, powerful, yet uncontrolled and wild. Banquo's ghost has stripped him of his complexities and left him more animal than man. Macbeth admits he is scared and fears only one thing, Banquo's stare from the afterlife. He is affected as much as he knows he is staring at his own guilt and the gory man he's become. Banquo is the image of his own worst crimes. His lack of nerve here is shown with the enjambment after nerves. A key quote then from this scene: I am in blood, stepped in so far, I should wade no more, returning or as tedious as to go over. The abstract noun, tedious, suggests Macbeth finds it boring, suggesting that he's bored of the killing, it has become normal, or he's given up trying to live and is choosing to die. This is said before the ending, foreshadowing that Macbeth knows his destiny. The tone suggests regret at the deaths that have been caused. The blood is like a metaphor for all Macbeth's victims. They are like a sea of blood around him so thick he can't go any further. This is extended through the repetition of blood through the rest of the play. Returning, go over, suggests that Macbeth is reflecting on his past and happier times, yet can't give up and chooses to go on. It is all the same to him. Blood and war in each direction. Macbeth used to say us or our, but now says the personal pronoun I, suggesting he is lonely as all help has now left him. Act 4, Scene 1. The witches prepare to meet Macbeth, creating a spell. An aggressive Macbeth arrives, demanding more prophecies. The witches ask him to choose what he wants to hear the prophecies from, the witches or their masters. Macbeth asks the masters. An armed head warns Macbeth of Macduff. A bloody child tells Macbeth he cannot be killed if man of woman born. A crowned child tells he won't be defeated by Birnam Wood and comes to his castle. And Macbeth wants to know more, and the witches present him with a line of kings and Banquo's ghost. The witches laugh and vanish. This scene structure deliberately recalls the opening scenes of the play. Once more, Macbeth's destiny is in question. Once more, he receives 3 prophecies. Once more, he's left on his own to decide how best to interpret those prophecies. And once more, he fails to understand that fate is inevitable, however he chooses to act. As the play reaches its climax then, Macbeth has become reliant or addicted on the supernatural's listings for confidence.
Thrice the brinded cass hath mewed. Thrice. And once the hedge pig whined. Happy cry. 'Tis time. 'Tis time. Round about the cauldron go. In the poisoned entrails throw, told that under cold stone days and nights has 31.
Sweated venom, sleeping good. Boil thou fast in the charmed pot.
Fill it with a penny snake in the cauldron boil and bake. Eye of meat, two of frog, wool of bat, tongue of dog, adder spawn, blind worm's sting, lizard's leg, and howlet's wing,
Scale of dragon, tooth of wolf, witch's mummy, maw and gulf of the ravine soul sea shark, root of hemlock digged in the dark, finger of bird strangled babe, ditch delivered by a drop. Double, double, toilet trouble, fireborn and cauldron bubble. Cool it with a baboon's blood. Then the charm is firm and good.
By the breaking of my thumbs, something wicked is wake up.
Open locks, whoever knocks.
How now, you secret black and midnight hags? What is it you do?
A deed without a name.
I conjure you, by that which you profess, howe'er you come to know it, answer me. Though you untie the winds and let them fight against the churches, though the yeasty waves confound and swallow navigation up, though bladed corn be lodged and trees blown down, though castles topple on their warders' heads, though palaces and pyramids do slope their heads to their foundations, though the treasure of nature's germens tumble all together even till destruction sicken. Answer me. Do what I ask.
Speak.
Demand, we'll answer.
Say if thou'dst rather hear it from our mouths, or from our masters.
Call them. Let me see him.
Come high or low, thyself and office deftly show.
Tell me, thou unknown power.
He knows thy thoughts. Hear his speech, but say thou not.
Macbeth, Macbeth, Macbeth. Beware Macduff. Beware the Thane of Fife. Dismiss me. Enough.
Thou hast helped my fears aright, but one word more.
He will not be commanded. Here's another, more potent than the first.
Macbeth, Macbeth, Macbeth.
Had I 3 ears, I'd hear thee.
Be bloody, bold, and resolute. Laugh to scorn the power of man. For none of woman born shall harm Macbeth.
Then live Macduff, what need I fear of thee? But yet I'll make assurance double sure and take a bond of fate, thou shalt not live. That I may tell pale-hearted fear, it lies, and sleep, in spite of thunder. What's this that rises like the issue of a king?
Listen, but speak not to it.
Macbeth shall never vanquished be until
Great Burnham Wood, high Dunsinane Hill, shall come against him.
That will never be. Who can impress the forest, bid the tree unfix his earthbound roots? Sweet boatman Scott, rebellious dead, rise never till the wood of Burnham rise. And our high-placed Macbeth shall live his lease of nature, pay his breath to time and mortal custom. Yet my heart throbs to know one thing. Tell me if your art can tell so much. Shall Banquo's issue ever reign in this kingdom?
Seek to know no more.
I will be satisfied.
Seek to know no more.
Deny me this, and an eternal curse fall on you. Let me know.
Show. Show?
Show.
Show his eyes and grieve his heart. Come like shadows, so depart. Show his eyes and grieve his heart. Come like shadows, so depart. Show his eyes and grieve his heart. Come like shadows, so depart.
As we can see there then, Macbeth is now pawn to the witch's spells and commands. Shakespeare builds the tension here as Macbeth's language is more abusive and rude than it was before, last time he met them. He insults the witches, not something they'll take well, as we know from the start of the play. He speaks in threes, as the witches do. Shakespeare confronts us with the image of Macbeth as a witch himself, as he conjures the witches to answer him. His tone and sentence structure imply he believes he is their equal. Macbeth matches the witch's power with a powerful curse of his own, demanding to have an answer even if it requires the unleashing of all the elements of air, water and earth, even if all the universe, nature or man-made, tumble into ruin. The abrupt nature of the witch's responses imply they are angry and seek to corrupt his moral compass and values, almost taunting him to step forward. Macbeth's most defiant act by far is the desire to hear the prophecy of his future, not from the witches, who are themselves only mediums of the supernatural, but from their masters, that is, the controlling fates. We hear the three things then that the witches promise. Beware Macduff. Macbeth is confronted by his own beheaded head as his own ghost talks to him, but he's too arrogant to notice. He's told that none of woman-born should harm Macbeth. Well, is this the born, bloodied Macduff? Is this the ghost of the baby Lady Macbeth sacrificed at the beginning of the play? Or is this an image of Macbeth's own innocence that's now bloodied and dead? Is the child speaking to him his own good self that is reminding him of the man he used to be? We then have apparition number 3, which tells him, "Be lion-mettled, proud, Macbeth shall never be vanquished until the great Burnham Wood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him." Duncan's son Malcolm then talks to him about Burnham Wood, bringing to Macbeth's castle. What is this? Where's this baby on his baby brow, the round? Macbeth realizes that Malcolm potentially is going to become king after him with the crown on his head. The last set of apparitions are a line of kings. The witches show Macbeth a line of 8 kings. This is the number of generations between Fleance and King James I, who was on the throne at the time of Macbeth's writing. This last holds a glass, which is a magic ball or mirror. If it is a mirror, it will be used to reflect King James himself sitting in the audience. And lastly, of course, a smiling Banquo. Macbeth's response is, "Sear mine eyeballs, will the line stretch to the crack of doom?" He is petrified by this vision of the future that the witches are showing him. Apart from the first, all the apparitions, including the fourth and final one of the possession of future kings, contain children. The juxtaposition of children, pictures of innocence, and images of death, warfare, and blood is dramatic and terrifying, but especially for Macbeth. For a man has no offspring, the image of children can only fill him with hatred and loathing. The children who appear in this procession are the children of Fleance. The reflected light in their golden crowns does sear or cut into mine eyeballs and causes his eyes to jump from their sockets. The climax of Macbeth's reaction occurs with the line, "What? Will the line of inheritance stretch out to the crack of doom?" which he finally realises the possibility of an entirely Macbethless future. Shakespeare has Macbeth unravel at the prospect of not having a son and the destiny of the witch's prophecies coming true. It is suggested to us that his former arrogance and cockiness is shattered as he shouts and yells abuse at the witches in fear. Shakespeare uses repeated rhetorical questions and short statements here to imply Macbeth's fear and shock at his fate as he contemplates his future. Shakespeare juxtaposes the bloodied Banquo with the happiness the character feels that his own destiny is due to come true and knows his son will father a line of kings. That is, Fleance will father a line of kings. Shakespeare allows us to reflect on the witches as makers of mischief with the positive language and tone here, as, for once, women have beaten the male-driven patriarchal society they live in. The witches then dance, possibly in glee, and then vanish from the stage. The witches confirm the inevitability of what Macbeth has seen. Aye, sir, and all this is so. There can be no equivocation, no argument with the fates. The simplistic nature of this statement is chilling and cold to Macbeth. All this is so, say the witches. Some key quotes from this scene. And now we finish the middle of the play with Macbeth and move on to essay skills. Here we have our essay plan then. As always, we start with a short overview, a really short overview, and then we look at the start of the play, the middle of the play and the end of the play, or indeed the start of the extract, middle of the extract and end of the extract. This is how the question will look then. It will ask, write about how blank, and that could be a character, a pair of characters or a theme, is presented in the play. The examiner will give you 2 bullet points to help. They'll remind you you've got to look at the play as a whole and show your understanding of characters and events of the play. So you'll need to show how one event links to the next and how it all accumulates by the end in Macbeth's death. Some key information then. As I said, this question will ask about a theme or character. It's looking for you to remember quotes. It's looking for you to comment on audience reactions. And you should think about the beginning, middle, end of the play, the evidence that you think best fits the question, the technical language you can apply to that evidence, and awareness of how the character or theme changes in the whole play, changes or develops, of course. Nothing in the play stays the same. Remember, the questions should take you around about 40 minutes in the EDUCAS exam. The next screen then will show one of the quotes from the middle of the play that you could use pretty much for any question you could be asked. This would fit the 40-minute plan described on the screen there. As the play develops, Macbeth says, when the brains were out, the man would die. Now rise again with 20 mortal murders on their crowns and push us from our stools. These are some bullet points that I would say about this quote then. He is speaking to Lady Macbeth and lords. They would be shocked. A man would die, suggests the laws of nature are broken. The chain of being no longer works as the dead come back to life. All Macbeth's victims will return. He is vulnerable when he thought he was invincible. The tone here is one of disbelief. Now they rise again, suggests God is against him, as if Banquo symbolises Jesus resurrected, suggesting that good always wins, linking to the end of the play. Murders on their crowns suggest that all his victims will come back to kill him, or does it mean that Banquo will take his crown as the witches promised? Push us from our stools is an imperative as if the ghost is forcing him from the throne. And the personal pronoun us or our means both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. He is confessing to murdering Banquo in front of everyone. Or perhaps they think he's confessing the murder to Duncan. This also makes him look out of control. He is not a good look for a king. The noun stool could be his throne and how little it actually is worth, or it could be that Banquo is warning him away from the rubbish he has created in the past in a final attempt to make him a good man. Notice there in some of those notes I've actually used alternative interpretation, which is one of the things the exam board will be looking for a higher grade. Thank you very much then for listening to this revision guide to Macbeth. This is the end then of part 2.